All right, Book of Boba Fett. All right, well, I'm going to talk about some spoilers here, by the way, guys. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, I would suggest. I'll give you the warning before I start talking about some of the spoilers when it comes to Book of Boba Fett Chapter 6. Even though it's very difficult, I'm not going to go into deep spoilers. I'm just going to talk about who showed up. That's all, because this episode was chock full of fucking cameos. And guess what? Guess what this episode lacked? Boba Fett. Again. There was one little scene though that he was there, but yeah, it was still very much. I mean, that's why I kind of made the joke in the beginning with the sketch. It's like, all right, so did they just like realize like, okay, now Book of Boba Fett, yeah, sure, we're gonna establish Boba Fett as this character, but we're also gonna we're just gonna cram some, cameos and stories, stuff like that. And I'm not saying that it's entirely a bad thing. I think anybody who's a diehard Boba Fett is just not liking this, and I was, I haven't read like all the books. I've done some, reading of things when it comes to Boba Fett, and I've had my issues already with this series, but the past few episodes, of course, have been not very Boba Fett. I mean, obviously the last one was essentially, it was a Mandalorian season 3 episode, first season 3, full on him. But of course, it still ties into the series. So when it comes to this one right here, when it comes to, and you know what? And the thing is, though, it's smart. In my brain, yes. I mean, I can understand. I mean, obviously, you go watch the Vodka stream on Friday. I had 3 Screen Rant guys on there. We had Mr. Keys, Mr. Dice, and Mr. Colbert. They're all really not too big of fans of what's happening with Boba Fett. And if you looked at their Twitter, they didn't like this, not too much of this episode too. But and I can understand that. Like diehard Boba Fett fans are probably not too happy what's happening with this series right now. They're probably like, all right, they're trying to like, all right, you got to win me over, and they just haven't got one over yet. And I totally get that, because even I have the issues with it. We talked about it yesterday when Kevin Smith said, the fact that he's always got his, he's got his helmet off. And it's not like he obviously doesn't have he's on a Mandalorian where they have to keep their helmet on all the time, but it's just something about Boba Fett with the helmet on all the time. And it just seems like a lot of the times he's just walking around without the helmet and he's just holding it and just like, it just doesn't feel very Boba Fett. I think there needs to be a better balance of the helmet wearing kind of scenes, I guess you could say. That's my opinion on it. It's like a little bit more helmet, a lot less veneers shining out there, but, okay, so spoiler alert. Let's talk about one particular character, all right? Spoiler alert, so I'm just saying, if you haven't seen it yet and you still are going to see it, I would say turn off the stream now. Bye. Love you. Thank you for clicking in. All right, so 3, 2, 1. All right. The Luke Skywalker deepfake, younger Luke. Holy shit, did that improve? My God. Very impressed. I'm sure even if you're still sticking around with all this, and I'm sure you saw in your timeline shots of Luke Skywalker, young Luke. Jesus Christ, was that a big improvement from when we saw him at the end of Mandalorian Season 2? Wow. And apparently they hired the guy who did the deep fake, who improved it on YouTube. Apparently I read something that they hired him, and my God, my God. Huh. It was so good. They hired the guy, yes, who did that. And my God, did it make a goddamn difference. Because this wasn't just one little tiny scene that he shows up in. Luke is very much in this whole episode. He's teaching Grogu. And it was cool to see Grogu again. It was adorable. You kind of go, oh, jeez, he's so cute, And he's trying to learn the Jedi ways. So we got scenes of that, and then scenes of Mondo, and then, of course, we have some other stuff, too, that happens. One little tiny scene with Boba Fett, when Mondo shows up a little bit, because he's going to eventually help him. I mean, it's going to lead somewhere, sure, but, man, it does seem like they cram. I mean, there's a character that shows up, which was a cool scene, but there's a character that shows up that was more of a character in the Clone series, which I still got to finish that. I really gotta do Rebel, Rebel, whatever the hell. And then, of course, the Clone Wars. I gotta finish it. I think I've gotten like halfway through them. I gotta fucking finish that stuff. So, yeah, I gotta catch up on the animation, because some of these characters I'm like, oh, okay, so there you go. But yeah, so another character showed up, which that was cool. But I mean, the main thing was like, and then of course Ahsoka, she shows up too, which a lot of Star Wars fans were like, holy shit! My God, this is crazy, because you got Ahsoka and you got Luke that are just like in the same scene together, and they just did a phenomenal job. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, and some people were wondering like, hey, how did they achieve the voice? You know, Mark Hamill's voice. I'm like, well, you got to remember, yeah, Mark Hamill, of course, has, you know, your voice obviously gets a little grungier. I mean, look at Nick Nolte. I mean, that guy's like 107 years old, and he just talks like this. That's right. You know? So, you know, your voice does change as you get older. It gets a little growlier, I guess you could say. That's right, my Nick Nolte impression. But, you know, Mark Hamill's a professional voice actor, so he can tweak his voice. But I'm sure they did a little tweaking also in post as well. So, you know, but so it just all was pretty, I mean, yeah, maybe a couple of shots, you kind of see the lighting looks a little off on the face, but for the most part, on some of those those shots, it looked goddamn flawless, man. So I was like, props to them. I really enjoyed the episode. I did still enjoy the episode. I mean, but I get fans that are just kind of going, what the fuck? You know, are we just like doing everything that they want? And, you know, I mean, even Steven himself, he wrote an article that he posted today, and it's a good article. Go check it out. And he talked about it too. It says, Disney Star Wars biggest problem is a focus on canon over plot. So go to Screen Rant and read Colbert's article about this if you want to. You know, it says Star Wars canon can be a great asset to world building and storytelling, but Disney Star Wars often prioritizes canon connections over plot. And yes, I totally see that. I totally agree with that. It seems that we're seeing that a lot when it comes to Boba Fett, because I think when it was announced that we were getting a Boba Fett series, Book Boba Fett, that a lot of us are like, oh shit, there we go. We're going to it's going to be like the Old West. It's going to be like all the bounty hunter type world. And then we kind of got more of that with Mandalorian, and everybody's kind of like, okay, so what are we going to do for Boba Fett? Because, you know, a lot of the stuff that we wanted for, for Boba Fett, you did in Mandalorian. So what are we going to do? And it just seems like what they're doing now, Filoni and Favreau, is just like going, they know what the fans want. They're listening. And they're really just going like, all right, we're expanding the story. We're connecting things. We're keeping things as canon as possible. I mean, there's just a lot of things that they're trying to do. And, to be honest, there are a lot of people that are enjoying it. I mean, it's funny when you look at the timeline. There's people that are just going, "What the fuck?" and then there's people that are going, "Holy shit, that's the best thing ever." And I'm kind of in the middle. You know, I'm enjoying it, and I enjoyed today's episode. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, maybe it should have been a different approach when it came to Book of Boba Fett. I don't know. There's just I don't know. You can't please everybody, but it is pretty interesting how they're taking this whole thing. But yeah, so go read that article from Colbert. I mean, I totally agree. Like, they're trying to really appeal to the canon as much as possible, which can actually sacrifice, the plot of what they're trying to do too. Because now I'm kind of going like, all right, what was Boba Fett doing again? Okay, it's been 2 episodes. I kind of forgot what he was doing. I was like, what was the whole thing? I can't remember now, But I can't say that it was pretty fucking awesome seeing Luke, Ahsoka, Grogu, and doing Jedi shit. And yes, he did some things that, that of course was nostalgic, and it was kind of like, oh shit. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see Tim, Grogu growing up. What's that going to be like when he starts actually talking and he's not all cute and adorable anymore? Now he just looks like is he going to look like Yoda? I mean, what's he going to be like when he starts talking? How's that voice going to be? Because obviously Yoda was very, very old. And, his species, I mean, obviously Grogu's like 50 years old, but he's still very much a child. But there's a cool little thing that they did. When it came to the Mandalorian, Mando and Grogu's like connection that they had. They kind of touched on that, which made you kind of go, oh. Because, we saw the end of season 2 of Mandalorian. I mean, if you didn't fucking well up, you don't have a soul. When he took off his helmet and they were looking at each other and Grogu really touched his face and shit like that. I mean, come on. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. My God.